Microsoft's purpose is in service of your purpose.
And again, 2024 is the year that partners come out as the leading edge of the spear on finding this buyer intent.
You show up to every meeting and demonstrate why you are relevant.
Every day I have to force myself to make sure that I'm taking one step ahead in terms of my own learning.
That flywheel of success is where you will build momentum, and that momentum will continue, and then you feed into the other systems to say, this is what we did, this is how we did it together.
Welcome to, or welcome back to the Ultimate Guide to Partnering. I'm Vince Menzione, your host, and my mission is to help leaders like you achieve your greatest results through successful partnering. Today I have a special guest here in the room, Janet Schijns, the founder and CEO of JSG, and a leader in channels, ecosystems, and as she refers to it, megacosms. We have an engaging conversation on all the topics you would expect us to talk about today. The role of the CPO, marketplaces, the resistance we're seeing to partnership leadership within the organization. Such an incredible leader, such an amazing conversation. Janet, welcome to the new studio.
Thanks. It's gorgeous. Thanks for having me. It's amazing.
I am so excited to welcome you back. We're here in Florida, right?
I know.
Both
so
of us.
Perfect. So perfect. The channel mob
The
is here.
channel
in Florida.
mob is here. Look at this. We're
amazing.
together.
Hi,
Great
everybody.
to see everyone.
Yeah.
Jay kicked us off earlier this year.
As only he can.
As only he can. Michelle's been in this. Well, Michelle hasn't been in the studio. Michelle's been on the podcast. We're going to get her in the studio
get her
next.
in the studio. Yeah.
And this has been so much fun. So I'm so excited you could join us today.
Happy to be here.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
I am so excited. As I said, I'm so excited. You are an icon in this world of channels and ecosystems. We've gotten to know each other well over the last couple of years.
We have.
And it's a topic that we both care deeply about and we talk about often. We've both spoken at events. We're going to be together. Actually, when this airs, we will have been together the same week.
That's right.
Next week. I wanted to have you here because we're at this precipice of time and things are rapidly transforming. A lot of topics we're both talking about.
Yeah.
And so I want to have you here in the studio. But first, there are apparently one or two people that are in our audience that don't know Janet Schijns. So I was hoping maybe you could spend a couple of moments for those one or two people telling us a little bit about you, your company, and your mission.
Sure. I'll face them. How about
How's that?
Hi.
Hey.
So for those of you who don't know me, or maybe who do, but want a reminder of like what's Janet up to these days, I'm Janet Schijns. I lead our amazing team at JSG, and we are a go-to-market consultancy. So I'm going to start there and talk about what we do now, and then I'll tell you a little bit of background about why you can trust me that I know my stuff. So we at JSG have three practice areas. The first is a planning and research practice area. So we have, I think, the world's best channel research team. That's why
not
Jay
biased at all.
Not biased at all. That's where Jay and I get along so well because our research team kind of picks up where a Canalys and IDC, a Gartner, others would leave off, right? Yeah. So you see this great trend, marketplaces, you hear Vince talk about it and he's so compelling and convincing. And then you say, what should my company do about it?
Yes.
I need some research done on what's happening in my space, in my verticals, in my areas. And that's where our research team comes in and does bespoke research. The second area we have is sales and marketing activation and enablement. All channel all the time, because our mission statement at JSG is save the channel, know, right? So we're always trying to save the channel. We did about $5 billion in funnel last year.
Wow. That's amazing.
Not too shabby.
That is amazing.
All on behalf of partners. And then finally, we have our channel consulting group, which is where you and I thankfully get to work together sometimes.
Yes.
And that's where we help companies either redesign their channel program or come up with their channel program. And now in a world where co-selling and marketplaces and everything is so big, we're doing that. So why do we have the right at JSG to have those opinions and do that work? It's because we are, the folks we put on the field are channel experts. We've all been channel chiefs. I was channel chief at Verizon. I was CMO at Office Depot. I was channel chief and CCO at Motorola. I'm joined by a huge group of people. I won't name them all who are with us who've done the same thing. They've been a CMO in the channel. They've been the channel chief in the channel. They've been out there. They've won the wars. They've gotten on the street. And that I think is the secret to our success is we go out and do battle with our clients.
I love that.
Anybody give you a pretty PowerPoint, right? And our PowerPoints are beautiful. I'm not saying they're not, but we really know how to get things activated and get things going. And we love to get out on the street and do the fight hand.
Well, that's why it's so important to have you here today because,
thank you.
We talk happy talk sometimes about channel and partnerships, but the truth of the matter is it isn't always easy.
It's not.
And organizations still struggle here. Like I have phone calls and I have DMs from people. It seems like every day I get a new one. Like I'm building a practice,
Right.
or we've been at it for 7 years.
Something's wrong.
Or our
Sales are
leadership,
flat.
our
Yeah.
leadership still doesn't get it.
Right. Or I got the last push through on cost of channel again from the CFO. Yeah. I get those same texts, and it's changing so quick. Right?
It is.
So that's part of it. Part of it is even the old dog channel leaders are having to learn some new tricks. And so you and I get a lot of calls because of that.
Yeah. And we're going to talk more about that as well. Some of the new tricks that they're learning.
Yeah.
So some of those new
or
trends.
not learning.
But why do you think organizations still struggle here? What would you say is the main reason? You're face to face at the board level. You're talking to the C-suite, right? You're with the channel chief or the chief partner officer, whatever the title is these days.
Yeah.
Why do you think that they're still struggling?
You know, increasingly, it's interesting. Increasingly, we're being pulled in by the board or the C-suite and not the channel leader.
Yeah.
Because so much is changing,
Yep.
right? Because so much is evolving and they're not sure what's supposed to happen. And I think the reason why so often there's a little bit of a gap. I'm not going to say disconnect, because I don't think it's a disconnect. I think if you speak to the C-suite, they understand, particularly if they do 75% of their sales through the channel, that the channel is important to them. The disconnect comes from the fact that the channel chief has long been, and excuse me to our audience listening at home, the shit umbrella for the channel.
Yes.
So their job has been to hold the umbrella up, and no matter what the CFO said, no matter what the sales leader said, their job was to protect the partners.
Yes.
Right. So you hold that umbrella up. I did that. I had a very, sore and very large.
Defend and protect.
Protect. And don't let that hit the partners, because if you let that noise hit the partners, they're going to slow down and stop selling. The problem though is that umbrella also keeps the feedback from the partners getting up to the management. And so I think what happened in protecting the partners, they actually overprotected leadership. And so we just finished a survey. Dr. Ashlyn Silva, who's the head of our research survey, just did a CRO survey of firms that had channel leaders. And the channel leaders all said that the change in the channel was significant. That was the most common answer. Significant change in the channel. The CRO said some change.
Interesting. And what do they mean by significant change?
Significant changes in routes to market, in partners, in how we're going to go to market, and how we're going to partner, right? As we dug down in the survey, in our channel survey, which comes out later this year, the CROs, while they saw some change, mind you, some change, they did not see that overwhelming level of change. And again, I think it's because that umbrella now is so lodged in place. They're not getting that feedback.
The transparency isn't there from the channel back up to the C-suite.
Right. It's just not getting to the C-suite. Yeah.
Is it a translation issue as well from the chief partner officer or the channel chief up through the C-suite, or maybe a lack of trust or understanding?
When you have to play protect me games all the time as the channel leader, which a lot of folks in the traditional business have had to do. Thankfully, in some of the SaaS businesses, it's been more transparent. But when you have to play that protect me game, it gets to the point where the channel chief is kind of covering their, butt for the issues too.
Right.
And so I think it's partially transparency. I think the other part is the C-suite only specializes in channel during ops reviews.
That's right.
And board meetings and earnings calls. And they don't specialize in the channel the rest of the time. And so what we've seen, and I know I've shared this stat with you, but not probably with your viewers. What we've seen is in 5 years, we've went from 51% of the time a customer spends in a B2B tech purchase being with a salesperson to only 14% of the time they spend with a salesperson.
Yes.
So this motion that we used to have where if you added more sellers, both partners or direct sellers, you would get more sales. This was a common, right? Has been something that's how everybody's looked at the channel. It's just more salespeople. We heard
this. That's right. Feet on the street, reach. Yep.
You're extending your coverage, right? We've all heard this reason for having the channel, right? Because they're a sales channel. Well, now you've got a Microsoft who's adding, 90% of their partners aren't transacting.
That's right.
We're seeing this across the space. It's about influence and advocacy. And so when that starts to happen, it's very difficult if you've been reluctantly in your C-suite partnering in the first place, now to let these people do even more. And believe me, they are referred to, for those of you in the channel listening, as these people, by a lot of C-suite leaders.
Yes. CFOs particularly love. We're going to dive into the chief partner officer role. So I don't want to, because I think that what you're uncovering here it's important. Let's go there first.
Okay.
I had Greg Serafin here just a few weeks ago from EY,
Awesome.
right? Chief Partner Officer.
Yep.
different role.
Yeah,
different role,
totally
different set of skills.
Yes.
We
yes.
spent almost an hour and a half in the studio here. He gave us a master class on what he did at EY, taking them from $1 billion to about 8 or 9 billion. He's retiring. And so I think about that chief partner officer, right? That role. I think the role that the nomenclature around the role is being overused and overhyped personally, right?
Yeah. When everybody becomes a CPO, no one's a CPO.
No one's a CPO. Right. But I do think that there's a new set of skills.
Very different set of skills.
Different set of skills. And I look at a person like Greg as an example of that, honestly, who comes from a financial acumen.
Right.
Where the channel chief is somebody who maybe grew up in the channel, maybe was at a vendor like a Microsoft or an HP or a Cisco. Sales experience mostly. And the translation back to the C-suite isn't as fluid, transparent, or the conversations that are being had are not being understood the way they need to because they're not in the language of the
and half
C-suite.
the time it's skills.
Yeah.
Right. And we'll talk on that. The other half of the time is just the culture of the company, right? The channel chief has kind of been this, I don't really know what he does, but, she does, although there's very few she's. I don't really know what they do.
There needs to be more she's.
There needs to be a lot more she's. We'll talk about that.
Yep.
They've kind of been cloaked in this little bit of secrecy, right? There's a lot of hugs. There's a lot of mugs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of events. And they're doing a lot of things. And, they bring in sales and the company says, hey, that's good. And we'll talk to you again and give you a hard time next month or next quarter. But the skill set has not been invested in.
No.
So despite the fact that there's so much change in the channel and that the channel leaders see that, what you see is still very traditional training. When we go in and do our partner expert training for teams, and that is really around how do you partner, not just resell or sell.
Give me that word again.
Partner expert.
Partner expert.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So how do you partner, right?
Yes.
What are the tenets of partnering? It's interesting how confusing that is for some traditional channel organizations because then they start to say things like, no, our product team handles that stuff. Oh, we have an alliances organization and it's in the strategy group.
Exactly.
We have a program group, and this is an interesting new trend that I'm seeing at variety of companies, including Verizon as an example, where the program team for partnering now reports to the CFO.
Interesting.
In an attempt, I can only believe, to control money.
So like a shadow organization for the partner organization.
Well, it's the actual program team. And they're not the only vendor I'm seeing doing this.
Okay.
They're starting to move that partner program, your traditional triangle, silver, gold.
Lack of trust in the channel chief and holding the dollars.
Because you've seen it in the past in marketing.
Yep.
We've seen it in the past in the channel, and we've seen it in sales. We've seen the CRO have it. Now all of a sudden I'm starting to see a trend of it moving that org, just the program, moving to either some level of compliance. Mm-hmm. And, we've seen some bad stuff happening. So I understand why, or finance. And the reason I point this out is because partnering has now become something that's all hands on the field.
Yeah.
It's not just it used to be pretty simple, right?
Yeah.
You want to partner, see the channel chief. They're over there.
Yeah.
Now.
And they have the partner program.
Right.
And they have a bunch of organizations.
They run almost like a different company.
They're bolted on.
They're bolted on. They're kind of this good thing. Now, then we started having companies say, we're going to be 100% channel. They still don't mean that.
No.
They mean they're going to put sales through the channel on their paper.
That's right.
And then we have companies like Microsoft, like E&Y, like AvePoint, which I'm honored to sit on the board for, who look at partnering as systemic across the organization.
Holistic approach.
A holistic approach. It's embedded. It's not a separate thing, right? Although they have a program and they have all the elements, it's part of everybody's job to partner. And that's the world we're moving towards. And that's why the skill for that CPO, that ability to reach cross organization, Greg has that skill, right?
He has that skill.
That ability to understand that there's a bigger game than signing the PO today. I was talking with Infosys. I'll use them as an example. They're genius at partnering, and they're doing $7 billion deals with 37 partners in them.
Wow.
So you start thinking about the scope of partnering, right? And in the past, you would have said, oh, good, they're going to do the install and config and management. That's not the case anymore, right? These are really complex situations.
They are.
And so the partnering, I actually think the next CEOs will come from the CPO.
Well,
because partnering is so embedded now in what the go-to-market motion for every company truly needs to be.
Well, that was going to be the next conversation point with you. So when Jay was here and we were both at that same event in Miami.
We were, yes. And it was cold and windy and our state represented poorly.
It wasn't
for other
our
people.
typical Miami weather, but it was my birthday.
I know it was. And we had
kind of
cake.
fun.
So that was awesome.
It was awesome. It was awesome. But Jay talked about the fact that every CEO needs to be a partner leader. That was his talk. And when he came here in the studio, and if you haven't watched or listened to that episode, it's a great episode as well. But we talked about this. Why do you believe that CEO needs to be a partner leader?
Well, because I want the audience to think about 10 years ago when we started saying every company's a tech company, right? Car companies stopped being car companies. They started being tech companies, right?
Tesla was
Cosmetic
iPhones.
companies everybody's a tech company.
That's right.
And that's become true, right? Every company is primarily led by tech. COVID sped that up.
Or a platform company.
Or a platform company within being a tech company.
That's right.
But it was like, hey, everybody's a tech company. Now everybody's a partnering company. So that's the next evolution. We're only at the tip of that evolution.
Yeah.
We're not somewhere where it's advanced yet.
Yeah.
And so what's happening?
By the way, new jobs, new opportunities for those of us who are in the tech world to venture outside of traditional tech.
I mean, gosh, we've been on conversations, with Lynn and healthcare and others, and everybody's partnering. Now, what's interesting about that is some companies, and I'm talking about you if I'm talking about you, they've just named their channel chief CPO because you're supposed to have a CPO. Much like what happened initially when everybody became a tech company, they named CTOs.
That's right.
And many times the CTO was just their CIO with a fancy new branding.
That's right.
And in fact, you saw a lot of people do CIO, CTO. 10 years before that, we saw the same thing with CISOs. Right. Originally, the CISO was just some guy who knew about security. Right. Then it became
Bob in the closet back in the day.
Bob manages our McAfee licenses, right? Okay, let's make him CISO. Then it became a career, a profession, and a very difficult one. And the same with CTO. And now I think the same with CPO. So we're probably in year 2 of this trend. And it's a 10-year get to maximum capacity ability. And so I think what you're going to see is a lot of failures in the current CPOs, the same way we saw when CMOs started.
That's right.
CMOs started, the average tenure was a year, right? Because everybody thought, we need a CMO. Marketing, we'll just get somebody who's good at
marketing. Somebody who's good with Marketo.
Right, exactly. And that was it. You were like, this is good. That person's good at arts and crafts. They'll be good at this too.
That's right.
Not so much. And so we're seeing the same thing now with the CPO. And the skills are very different, right? The channel chief is about sales, about partner management, right? And it's down. I'm managing you, Mr. Partner, Mrs. Partner.
That's right.
The CPO is about managing up, sideways, down, spinning in circles, saying, how do we put something together that's so exquisite for our customers through our partnerships with both our customers and our providers and our partners that we can't be beat, we can't be replicated, and then turn that into a partnering platform, if you will. I think the two end up kind of smudging together and make something that is, I can't think of another word. I said it already, but I'll say it again, exquisite for our customers. Yeah. And we are very early days in that.
Very early days. Yeah. And, we talked about Microsoft being prescient and being a harbinger of things. Microsoft has been good at doing this internally. Some of that is organizational. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But some of it, I talk about things like mindset, commitment, trust, and execution as 4 areas when we talk about this CPO role that I think we need a lot of work here.
We need a lot of work.
Go back to Greg, and Greg, you're getting a lot of kudos here today, but I think about the ability that we talked about the influence strategy and the ability to be credible, to have trust.
Right.
With that leader, that partner leader.
Correct.
It cannot be the person who was the channel chief last week, now just changing their title.
Well, and we're seeing that, right? Yeah. We're seeing people say, hey, let's do that. And what I'm trying to explain or help the C-suite and the board. I sit on several boards, right? And having that conversation, being asked to present to other boards, being asked to be an advisor to a board on this topic it's not about routes to market.
That's right.
That's been true. Now, it's not to say you're not going to have routes to market. Right. Of course you are. Yep. But your strategy for partnering is not about routes to market. It's about commercialization of innovation.
Yes.
How will you commercialize innovation amongst your ecosystem? And that starts with a trust ecosystem. So who will you treat as a partner? And this gets them every time, as well and as poorly as you treat your own employees.
Wow.
Because a good partner should be a part of your team.
Yeah. What's the answer you get when you ask that question?
We can't do that. then you're not ready. You're not
ready.
Then you're not ready.
Right.
Right. So how do you make that happen? How
Right.
do you make it so that your partners, I want people to be confused about who works for which brand.
Yes. Yes. This is
right. This is
the joint value proposition.
Right. This is
and
true integration.
Yes.
Right. And it's multiple parties.
That's right.
And so what we're seeing now is some heroes. We're starting to see the alliance manager who has long been tasked with this webbed, weird,
fuzzy role
of press releases and product releases and trying to manage one of your biggest customers / partners / developers /
Yep.
They're starting to rise up as heroes because this kind of nebulous territory has been something that they've broken their teeth on, right? And they do have a little more ability to work in the gray zone. And that's the key. The channel chief, a lot of times, and some of them will retrain. Some of them will retrain and be fine. I have no doubt of that. There's always the exceptions. But the rule is the channel chiefs have been in a black and white arena for a long time.
Yeah. And a lot of it is the vendor partner role or vendor channel role.
Correct.
Which is more one-sided.
Correct. And I am not, so that the audience hears me, not saying that the channel chief role goes immediately away tomorrow overnight.
No,
because that would be
a primary function.
Right. It's a primary function.
Yeah.
It's like, it would be like saying your direct sales leader's role is going to go away. Of course, that's not going to go away.
Right.
So any significant route to market that you have is still going to have a sales leader.
That's right.
Right. That makes sense. It's the layer above that. It's the understanding that you could be in a sale.
Yeah.
Right. There could be 37, as I mentioned earlier, partners.
That's right.
And so in that scenario, you don't get to be in charge. And this is the hardest conversation I have because the C-suite is so used to, we're going to let the channel sell that product. We're going to give the channel this discount or give the channel this commission.
Yeah.
We're going to block the channel, always my least favorite discussion, from key accounts because we own them. News alert, no one owns an account. I want the audience to hear that. But those tenants.
That's right.
Right? They don't work in a partnering world.
And this is where
a
mindset,
channel sales world.
This is where the shift in mindset has to
And it's
happen.
very hard because then, and especially my friends in the European markets, right? They don't like stories. Americans like stories, right?
We're storytellers.
They want like metrics and measurements and like, how am I supposed to measure that? And what I say to them is, look, I read your last 10 press releases where you made an announcement with whoever, right? Name your megacosm, my term, megacosm, right? Name your megacosm of partners. Cause I do believe it's going to be a megacosm.
It is.
Forget
going to
ecosystem. It's going to be a megacosm. Like this is where we're going. We went channel sales.
We're talking universe
partnering,
and galaxies.
Ecosystem, megacosm.
Yeah.
So you're going to go with a megacosm strategy and your metrics already are messed up because I took your last 10 press releases and then I went and talked to your head of sales and I said, they announced 10 things. Ooh, with IBM, we're doing this. We're doing this with Microsoft. We're doing, woo, right? All over the news. How many sales did you make? Not very many.
Goose eggs.
Yeah. And so you've been doing these press releases. You have been in effect partnering. You haven't figured out how to commercialize that.
That's right.
And
that's where the alliance leader, the chief revenue officer, the CFO, this is where everybody, so this is that whole influence strategy, corralling that whole group together in the right and effective way.
And if you really want to see everybody's eyes roll, then you start to talk about, okay, so advocates, who might be your advocates? Who else is there? Who else should you partner with? Some of them are very unnatural. They're not who you would naturally think. And who are your detractors? And they're like, detractors, what do you mean? So I was just at CCA, Cloud Communication Alliance, great event, by the way. I was talking with a group of CEOs and CROs and I brought this up and they were like, detractors, what do you mean? And I said, okay, you all do stuff that's, aiding collaboration and communication. Do you not think the CISO is a detractor for you sometimes? Or whoever their security consultant is a detractor for them making progress?
That's right.
Oh yeah. And how about the website guy? Whoever's running their website in e-commerce, do you not think the website e-commerce provider is not a detractor for your service? You're saying we could put chatbots in. They have their own approach to it. Your call center application, your CCAS application fails. Do you really think they like you when they just did a web campaign and they're getting judged on ROI? You have natural detractors.
That's fascinating.
So partnering is not just about the positivity.
That's right.
Right? It's also about the negativity and how do you manage the negativity? How do you lower the noise and the friction in the system? And that's why I think they will be the next CEO because as every company becomes a partnering company, every company starts to learn to manage the megacosm. The person who won, they're going to be the most hotly pursued CEO ever.
I agree. And the CROs of the past, which are the ones that were not channel friendly or partnership friendly, I think they're going to be a dinosaur at some point.
So why do you think they're in the past?
because they don't understand partnering.
Oh, I thought you meant they were gone already. No, they're still there.
No, they're
right?
still there. Unfortunately,
There's
they're the biggest detractor.
Amount of them, yes, that don't know channels.
Because 5 or 6 years ago, they were successful at XYZ company.
Direct sales.
They took a SaaS offering. They got it to, X number of dollars.
First billion,
ARR,
right?
Yeah,
and then everybody
ARR.
said, this is the sweetheart.
Yeah.
This is who I need as my CRO. And then they went into a company that was 90% or 80% security, 91.5% channel involved, right? They went into a company like that. And then everybody's like questioning, why are they struggling with partnering? But again, back to my original point, when we do our partner expert training, what we learn is most people have no formal training in partnering.
No.
They have formal training in channel sales, being a CAM, right? There's CAM training, right?
Oh, I hate
this
that
is
word
not
too.
partnering training.
Yeah.
Right. That's like saying, I don't know, I'm trying to think of like one of those like Zig Ziglar selling classes for direct selling or
Tom
trust-based selling or
Hopkins and
whatever.
way back in the day.
That's sales training.
Yeah.
Right. And so they
That's
have
right.
channel sales training, but they don't have partnering training.
They don't have partnering training.
No.
And it needs to be a discipline at the university level.
It's so interesting you say that. I've been having some conversations at the university level with the team at Wharton because I did some executive MBA work there about that. About how do you have a partnering executive program, like a graduate certificate program for partnering? Right. Do I think it's a whole undergrad at some point? Sure. But for right now, it would be good to have an executive management, executive MBA program for these folks that need to be reached.
And you pull in the multi-disciplines, right? You pull in IT, you pull in finance, you pull in marketing.
Professor Vince,
I'm happy to come in.
Right? Professor Dana,
exactly.
You pull in experts and that's what they do. I took the board training from Wharton, which is fabulous as an aside for anybody who's considering getting on boards. And that's what they do. They bring experts in and they explain to you what it's really like. And I think that's what we need. Yep. We need a lot of education.
Yep. If you're part of the movement, I have a very strong point of view. I've sat on both sides of the table for over 30 years now. I built growth through partnerships in PC, internet, cloud, mobile, AI, marketplaces, and more. I've also seen the demise of organizations that are resistant to change. I'm part of the communities, special interest groups, and associations, and I don't see one place that mirrors the ecosystem and brings it all together. You see, I see a vibrant world where hyperscalers, builders, ISV sellers, SIs, MSPs, and other partners come together to spark the ecosystem's growth. I've talked to many of you, and what I continually hear is it's noisy, I don't know whom to listen to, and where to go. There's a massive opportunity, but I'm not sure how to get there. Well, you've been heard. We're getting ready to open the doors early to pilot this new experience. We want this to be your place, with your feedback and participation. If you're a builder, an innovator, or a leader, visit our website. So we could riff all day here on this topic.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, we could talk about mindset, execution, executive commitment, because this all ties into this. There's a topic we're going to talk about together. I've been talking about quite a bit. I've been talking about the tectonic shifts. What we've been seeing at the CEO becoming the new CIO, and how that's impacting these cloud decisions, right? You come out of the telco world. Vodafone just signed was it $1.5 billion commitment with Microsoft?
Yes, they did.
And I know the person who executed it.
And they're all doing that.
They're all doing that now.
This is happening. Yes, it's happening.
So now I'm in the line of business and I've got this huge cloud commitment in a company and I'm talking to an ISV or a security company or, somebody, MSP, whatever the role is. I want to cobble it together. We're talking about the whole marketplace concept here, right? And then last year, and Jay talked about this in our conversation, right? 5 organizations got to $1 billion or more with AWS, which made AWS, the 5th largest distributor.
I think it did. Yeah. And I think they're on their way to 4th this year.
Yeah. So that changes, don't lie. That changes things.
You're nervous if you're in distribution.
You are nervous. And somebody asked me yesterday, I won't mention the name of the company, but it was somebody asking me for advice from one of the large hyperscalers, was about what happens to distribution for us? What do we think about with distribution? So we can go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah, we can go in a lot of different directions. And I think, the key to me with marketplaces is they're not a panacea, right? No. You can't just say, hey, we're going to go on the Amazon marketplace or the Microsoft marketplace and be done, because you've got healthcare companies that have very specific requirements. Yes. You have highly regulated industries like utilities and telcos, right? And so I am seeing that not only are the hyperscaler marketplaces coming up, but so are the specialized marketplaces coming up. So you're starting to see the Cerners and McKessons and other in healthcare, right? Kind of rising up. You see Workday and Salesforce and others. And so I think there's going to be, to go back to our channel experience, almost like a triangle of marketplaces, right? That says, okay, at the top, you're going to have your hyperscalers for specific broad-based marketplace, and then you're going to have specialized marketplace and then hyper specialized marketplace.
This ties into your
tail.
megacosm too, if you think about it from that perspective, because you have the hyperscalers and then you have the galaxies and the solar systems.
Exactly. And it kind of comes into this megacosm. And so, instead of being a triangle, it'll kind of be a big circle, right? That kind of smooshes together. But what we see is that the folks that are ignoring that trend, and we do see it, right? And I'm sure you see it too.
I do.
Hey, that's not going to be us. It is.
A lot of the large ISVs still, by the way, because they don't want to disrupt their channels of distribution. They're just distributors.
And I respect that.
And the 31,000 partners downstream on the long tail.
But what I would say is, and I'm going to say it to the audience, it's an and strategy. It's not an or. Right? So it's an and strategy. I have a traditional channel. I have a traditional distribution. Let's face it, right? Bread's just bread without a toaster. Can't be toast. So there's hardware. There's going to be hardware, right? That's just reality. But there's also going to be marketplaces and your customers like buying from them. And so we're seeing more and more. I think, what I saw last week, I think it was from Tackle. It might have been from somebody else, was 21% of the deals were being done by a partner.
It could have been. I don't know. I didn't see the Tackle research.
And Microsoft is empowering that.
That's
right. So we're going to see an and strategy here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So lots of numbers coming out with regards to marketplace, right? Our good friend Jay in the Canalys organization said 45 billion by the end of 2025. They said that they've undercalled it. Tackle, who you just mentioned, right? Who's actually going to be here for our event here on May 30th. In fact, a little plug for our May 30th event.
Fabulous.
They're saying 100 billion by the end of 2026.
Yep. I've seen that number too.
So are we in a hype phase? Because I've been talking about the marketplace moment, and I'll be self-inflicted maybe that I'm helping to create some of the hype, speaking on stage at the Channel Partners event and some other places about this, that everyone needs to get on board. But is it a hype phase?
There are certainly going to be winners and losers, right? So you might pick wrong in a marketplace. You might pick the wrong strategy, but it's not a hype. It's just early adopter phase, right? And I know for some people listening, they're like, we've been on a marketplace for 5 years. It's not early adopter. It still is pretty early in the
It's early adoption
cycle. And so who's going to win and who's going to lose? I mean, I think we all can say Microsoft's definitely going to win at the hyperscaler, Amazon and Google, right? That, they've got so much investment.
That's right.
And the other thing that we're many times failing to realize is that with Gen AI, there's almost this big bang moment coming where Gen AI uses so much compute power. Quantum computing leaps on top of that. And all of a sudden, the most precious thing in the world to every company becomes power. Because you got to power those data centers for all that compute power. And so what we're seeing is Amazon now the number one provider of alternate energy. Right. Microsoft talking about power.
They're putting their data centers near power, near hydro.
I'm seeing trillion dollar contracts for power from the hyperscalers happening in the coming years. And what'll happen is they will eat up the power. So even if you're a specialized marketplace, you will end up in a hyperscaler marketplace just from a consumption of power standpoint, because there will be no power left.
And layer on top of that, like Microsoft last year, $32 billion in cloud build out.
Right.
They're spending, each of the hyperscalers is spending an inordinate amount of their investment dollars on chips right now.
That's right.
That's why NVIDIA's stock is where it is.
Right. They're buying up processing capacity. Achilles heel is power. So they're buying up power. Second Achilles heel is chips, right? Because we saw what happened during COVID.
Absolutely.
Got Intel building a monolithic chip manufacturer in Ohio that will still only do about 2 or 3% of the chips that are needed.
And we need a lot more chip capacity here in the United States.
A lot more chip capacity.
What's happening in China and Taiwan right now is still
very fraught with peril, right?
Yes.
And so I think you're going to see a world where it's not always the best solution that wins. It's often the person that dealt with risk best. And in fact, when we go in and do our market action planning practice, shameless plug, it's a great program. Our market action planning actually starts with failure first.
Failure first.
So what would be the things that would make you fail? How would you fail? How would your biggest competitor kill you? What would happen? And by the way, it's a depressing start to it. I'm not saying it's not.
By the way, that military organizations go through this strategy exercise,
right?
They
do. Fail first, fail fast.
That's right.
So we do fail first, and it opens up. You watch the aperture and people's brains open up around partnering, particularly, right? And in the marketplace world, around how they're going to handle partnering in a marketplace driven customer self-serve world. And they start to realize that their failure points are very different than their failure points would have been for channel sales.
Yeah.
Right? Channel sales was, there's another vendor comes in, the partner likes their program better, they pay more, right? Those were the failure conversations. Now the failure conversations are somebody inks an exclusive partnership with somebody else and we don't have access anymore.
That's right.
And our customers turn because all their money, and let's remember that's how the marketplace works.
That's right.
CIO puts money into it.
A cloud commitment.
A commitment, credits, whatever the specific marketplace calls it. And you then get forced into that funnel.
That's right.
And so when we do our failure planning, a lot of times that's how marketplaces then becomes in their plan.
Yes.
So when we do the optimistic planning, and by the way, for everybody listening, you race to a crisis, you walk to an opportunity. It's human nature. So when we talk about opportunity, it's always, how do we grow 30%? How do we grow 100%? How do we, how do we do this? You start talking about failure, all of a sudden it's, oh shoot.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden,
what's our contingency planning?
Right.
And
So during the optimistic portion, marketplace was down low in the top 10 for a lot of the boards and CEOs. When you start talking failure avoidance, marketplaces pops up.
Yeah.
Way up into the top 5, top 3, top 2 for many orgs.
And this makes the alliance leader more relevant to the conversation
Much more
because
relevant.
they've had the relationships with the Microsoft, Amazons,
They've
and
got
Googles.
the little tentacles in there. They know where to knock on what doors.
And then the conversation about placing your bets across all three, riding on all three sets of rails.
Correct. And then we start having the conversation about how do you operate? What's your operating model in that?
That's right. That's the piece where I feel that most ISVs at least struggle.
And the first thing I always tell, and HR loves me for this one, the first thing I always tell them is you got to get away from thinking of your operating model like an org chart.
Yep.
I want you to think of it like a deck of cards. And you can play any number of games with a deck of cards, right? You can play rummy, you can play hearts, you can play solitaire, you can play whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
But it's a deck of cards. And in the deck of cards, you got to have kings and queens and aces and but you can play a different game with that. So it's less about organization structure and more about the plays you're trying to make with that deck of cards.
Right.
And it really changes how people start thinking because they're like, oh, that changes who my aces are, right?
Yes.
That changes who this partnering strategy changes who today your aces are CEO, CFO, CISO, CIO, CMO, right? You got your aces, right?
That's right.
But they're not your aces anymore. So now how do you manage in an org chart when your ace is the alliance manager who's been there for 20 years and knows where everybody is buried at the biggest hyperscaler? So it's really becoming an interesting full-bodied conversation around operating model when we do our market action planning days.
Do you wind up with a new org?
Yeah. You wind up with a new org or at least a shadow org strategy because operating model, and that's where I love everyone, but that's where a lot of companies start with org model and then they try to push operating model into it. You have to start in the market action planning. We start with
like stuffing,
operating model.
It's like stuffing people or process into it.
Right. And so I think that world of partnering is going to get away from that command and control finally in corporate. Yeah.
How do you so the conversation, it's very interesting. And then how do you change your compensation models, right? Because one of the things I see from a blocker perspective, when you look at the existing organization, again, I like the panic, like we have to get to the rallying cry around the marketplaces.
Absolutely.
But today I have an alliance team that's bolted on over here or sits here. I have the channel team. We like to use the term bolted over here to revenue.
Right. I've got a program team somewhere, maybe marketing, maybe finance.
They're not on the same comp plan. They don't have the same OKRs. They're not aligned the right way. Right. So you have to change the compensation models.
It, right? You have to change the comp. I tell people it's a lot like parenting.
Yeah.
You got to decide what's important first, right? Don't focus on anything else. Just focus on what's important. In our house, it was don't do drugs and get an education, right?
Yeah.
And then get a job. Those were the 3 important things. Your room's messy. I don't care.
Yeah.
And so this is the same thing for corporations. They've spread so thin what their metrics are
Yep.
Everybody has 10 different metrics. You look at most people's comp plans. You're like, I don't think they have any idea what they're doing to your stock price. Like, let's be honest, let's just be transparent here and say that the person, in channel sales in your organization probably is not having a massive impact today on your stock price.
Not today.
Right? Maybe in aggregate over time, sure. But so what we're encouraging people to do is to actually dumb down the metrics.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Right?
Make it simple.
Make it simple.
Make it
What are the
simple.
3 big things that are gonna drive the organization forward, get rid of the noise? In the past, it used to be like earnings per share, and then it was, margin or some level of which, right? And a comp. That's the other thing I love. And it was a comp against others, right? It's always a comp. And now we're starting to encourage people that you can't look at your comp by the industry you're in. You have to look at part of your comp has to be where they are in partnering.
Yeah.
So I think we'll see Microsoft added as a comp for a lot of folks in some of their metrics.
That'll be very interesting to see what they do.
I would love,
this is a fun conversation. We're going to have you back here.
It's very
it's like a mind meld today.
It's a mind meld today.
You're a Star Wars person. So
I am a Star Wars person.
So we're going to do a little mind meld. We're going to bring, R2D2 or one of your friends with us next time.
The world is changing a lot. You've got a challenge that you don't need a faster horse.
Yes.
You need a car.
Yes. Very
right?
much so.
Right. And so you have to challenge everything in that scenario.
It's important to me that the supplements that I take are of the highest quality. And that's why for over 7 years now, I've been drinking AG1. Unlike many supplement brands, and believe me, I've tried many of them, AG1 is consistently looking for ways to do things better. At 52 iterations of their formula and counting, their team is always finding ways to make AG1 even better. Quality for AG1 isn't just a buzzword. It's a commitment backed by expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and rigorous testing. At every step of the process, AG1 goes above and beyond industry standards. I know I can trust what's in every scoop of AG1 because the team relies on expert-led scientific research, sourcing ingredients for potency and efficacy. Taking care of my health shouldn't be complicated, and that's why I rely on AG1 because it simplifies this by covering all of my nutritional bases and setting me up for success every single day. AG1's ingredients are heavily researched for efficacy and quality, and I love that every scoop also includes important prebiotics, probiotics, and digestive enzymes for my gut health. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more like I have, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a 1-year supply of vitamin D3 and 5 free travel packs with your first subscription. Go to drinkag1.com/VinceM. That's drinkag1.com/VinceM. Check them out. Let's talk about a topic we are both passionate about.
Sure.
And it's women in tech, women in the ecosystem. As you know, I've been very deliberate here about featuring women in this world of ours.
You're such an amazing advocate for all of us.
You're very kind. You're very kind.
True.
But I have also been very deliberate because I feel that all voices need to be heard.
Yes, I agree.
And we're moving out of the bro culture of this tech world that unfortunately, when you go to some of these conferences.
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of the conferences I go to, the bro code is still up there.
The bro code is still there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I do feel we were at dinner the other night and was asked about women in technology. And the observation from the person who wasn't in it was that there's a lot of women in tech.
There are.
And I said, they're in mostly traditional roles.
They are.
They're in head of HR, head of diversity, CMO
legal,
roles.
finance, marketing. Yeah. And then we saw them impacted the most by layoffs because those roles are the easiest to replace with AI as well. So
let's talk about our world.
Yeah.
And why don't we see more women leaders and this should be a C-suite role. So at the C-suite, why don't we have more women leaders running the partnerships, alliances, channels, and ecosystems, megacosms?
The megacosms. Yeah. So to start, and I know you know this, I launched Advancing Leadership Network with Kathleen Martin, who joined our team earlier this year to help mid-level management females go to the next level in management, because that's where the break is. right? The break
Yeah.
happens in the mid-level management. You get to manager or director.
Yeah, it's
and
like a glass ceiling. I hate to use that term, glass
yeah, you
ceiling, but
just
it does
can't,
feel
you
like
know,
there's that
it's a
next
partnering
pop.
ceiling.
Yeah.
And you're held, you're held down.
Yep.
My family also took a significant portion of assets and created a not-for-profit WOMWAN, and we are sponsoring and giving scholarships to women.
Wow,
to
I
help
didn't know
them
that.
to be
This is
yes,
fantastic.
we did. Yeah,
This
we
is
took
good
a
news for
a
our listeners and
significant
viewers.
portion of our wealth. And my husband and I said, if I got to put my money where my mouth is.
Good for you.
And so let's
Good for
start a
you.
foundation that's going to help women get to and to me, it's about financial independence, right?
Yes.
Yes, it's good for the industry. It's good for everybody. But when women succeed and women become leaders, they become financially independent. Women that are financially independent are 9 times less likely to be abused. And I'm a survivor of abuse. And so I know how important it is to be able to get out. And so we're really dedicated on helping women get ahead, not just because it's good for the industry, but because it's good for women and their families when they're in danger.
I didn't know that, Janet.
Yes. Yeah.
We didn't have that conversation
in my
before.
past, in my past,
way
long in
back,
my past. If
way
it can happen
back.
to me, it can happen to anyone.
Yeah.
Please, if it's happening to you, please text me, call me, or text or call Vince, and we will get you help.
Please do.
One of the things that we've seen is why women don't get ahead is also partially, sadly, why they are more likely to be victims of abuse, why they're more likely to be not financially independent. Women are the care providers.
Yes.
They have the children, they have the parents, they have, they're sandwiched in between this. And the channel traditionally has been a heavy travel job.
Yes, very much so.
The higher you get in the organization, the more you have to travel nationally, if not internationally.
All of the events.
Right. To an endless plethora of events.
All the late nights out at the bar.
Late nights at the bars with people,
channel
with
chief
your,
role.
and I hate to say it, with your tush being squeezed and people coming on to you because they're drunk.
Yeah.
And so it gets lonely.
Sadly.
It's uncomfortable, and it doesn't match up with, unfortunately, still the primary role, which is care providers.
Yeah.
Now, there's some families where that's not true, where everybody's pulled together, where they help. Look at the McBains, right? They're definitely breaking that norm. They're both equally responsible, and for the kids, they get a lot of community help.
Plus, COVID has made it so, we were just talking about
events. It a little
events
easier to start to,
for a period of time.
Right. And then events started coming back.
Yeah.
And so I think the number one reason has been that women felt excluded because it was all guys.
Yep.
Then they were excluded because it just didn't fit into the average, I'm being very transparent. I'm a mom, the average mom's journey to travel to 117 events a year. And then third, the financial rewards really weren't as good for women. Women typically got less money for the role. They typically were promoted slower, were comped lower. In the past, women didn't choose channel. So as they started to rise up, they either moved over and became the channel program lead. They moved over then again to marketing, right? Because they were in the marketing org. So they moved into marketing. They maybe
partner marketing.
Then maybe they became a field marketer. Then maybe they became CMO.
Yeah. I've seen that path. I've seen that partner marketer to CMO.
Right. That path took talented women out of the channel. And it's a shame because now we're in a mode of partnering.
Yeah.
And from a EQ standpoint,
women are much better here,
right? Women are better at partnering. This is part of the soft skills, right? Of the being able to bend, not break, and compromise, not conquer.
That's right.
And so we're seeing this, oh goodness, right? We have this huge gap of women who actually have the skill to do the job, but haven't had the experience doing the job.
So what can we do? I mean, we've got our viewers and listeners and people that watch us on LinkedIn and YouTube and other channels. What can we do differently?
Well, the first thing is mentor somebody, right? If you can, if you're experienced, if you are a channel leader, if you're a partner leader, if you're an ecosystem leader, pick a female and mentor them. You're amazing at this. I've seen you take women under your wing and help. The second thing is be their sponsor. When ideas for roles come up.
Different than mentoring.
Different than mentor, right? Mentor means I'm going to provide you with structured help. Sponsor means, hey, we need a new partner or lead. And you advocate and say, hey, Jenny would be great for that role.
That's right.
Here's why I think she'd be great for that role. Here's why I think you need to do this. And don't be afraid to push it.
And you're in the boardroom. So that's where those conversations should happen.
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
And I put my foot down all the time.
Good for you.
And we've actually, now really, we do have I mentioned Save the Channel as our tagline.
Yep.
And so we won't work with anybody on a channel project where it's going to hurt the channel. right? If it's going to really negatively impact the channel, we will not take that contract. That's always a surprise to people, but I am not destroying the partners that actually are the lifeblood of the business.
Yes.
There's a way to do projects and change your channel strategies and ecosystem and partnering strategies without hurting your partners. So if companies aren't open to that, I'm not for you. They often, 99 times out of 100, they come back and go, we were wrong. Shouldn't have went that way. You were right. Let's go back to the table and do it the right way.
Yeah.
But we also now are saying, look, if there's no women at the table, there's no diversity, no people of color, we don't really want to work with you.
Yeah. Good for you. Good for you.
And so that has really changed some conversations.
Yeah.
I get a lot of calls now. Transparency. I also get a lot of calls of people who think I have a can of women that I can just like open up and pick one out. Here you go. She's all ready for you. She's just been waiting in the can for you to call. And it doesn't
So you
work
start a
that
recruiting
way.
business here. Just
I guess
doing
I
that.
could.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way, right?
No,
You're
it
going
doesn't.
to, male or female, you're going to have to invest in the person having the partnering skills for
That's
CPO.
right. You need to have a bench.
And I would almost argue that the person who wasn't the channel chief is a better candidate.
Yes.
And so since most of the channel chiefs are male, find the other person who was good at partnering and got sidelined maybe a little bit, right? And maybe they're your next CPO and you can do some kind of 2 in the box or, co-management scenario to help them get the experience.
Mentor, advocate, look for talent.
Look for talent.
I think about the baseball team, right? You got to have the farm team. You need
there
to
was
have
a
the
book.
bench.
I don't remember who wrote the book, but there was a book about you just hire people and then find them the roles.
Find them the role. Hire great people.
Hire great people,
Hire great
then
people.
follow the roles, right? And so I keep a collection. I do have a little database I keep of women that I've seen skills.
Nice.
I put the skills in. We've turned it into a database so I can input what somebody's looking for and say, I think this person is primarily ready for that. Yeah.
We're going to run out of time.
We are.
So we are almost at the midpoint of 2024 already. I can't believe it. Like it was just New Year's Eve here.
Like that.
in
I think
Florida.
I wished you Happy New Year 7 seconds ago.
Exactly. How should we each prepare? What should we be doing differently going into the second half of this year? What great advice or strategy
It's
that you
a great
could,
question.
Yeah.
We had a silent recession in 23.
Yeah.
I'm talking to you, right? You all know it's true. We just didn't talk about it in the tech
economic
industry,
headwinds, 470,000 people laid off last year, right?
Right. And I think if you watch Layoffs.io, I think we're over 100,000 already this year in the tech space and the startup space.
It's not over.
It's not over.
No.
In fact, the big ones are just starting, right? Tesla yesterday, right? So I think the economic uncertainty continues at least through 25. I don't care what the pundits say, right? You're going to see a pop because of the election.
Yep.
Get ready. If you need to get a mortgage, get ready. Because you'll have a little window right before November where things will come down.
Insurance,
right?
the interest rates will come down
exactly,
again.
Right? So just personal advice, get ready.
Refinance if you're ready to do that.
Exactly. If you got a high rate, it's time, right about October. On top of that, we're going to see tech continue to grow.
Yes.
It's just where it's growing and where it's declining, right? We're going to see generative AI really swap out finance teams, core repetitive task teams, contact centers. So we're going to hear these big numbers, 30% laid off, 25% laid off, right? But it's going to be in those routine tasks, easy to replace with a machine area.
Yes.
And any partner who's not involved in generative AI, not using generative AI, doesn't understand it, will be making a huge mistake.
Huge mistake.
Basically signing their termination papers.
Yeah.
We're going to see marketplaces continue to rise. The biggest reason is because it lets you compare and contrast offers.
That's right.
And manage costs.
Manage costs.
And in the current financial environment,
streamlines the process
completely.
The
process, manage costs. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
The third thing we're going to see, and we continue to see, marketing is leading the way in sales.
Yeah.
The firms that get it, and we just finished a study on this, the top growth firms in our industry invested more in marketing and got more leads from marketing than the bottom growth companies who were still trying to push the sales mantle, right? Hire more salespeople. This is a failing play.
It is a failing play.
You could, in fact, and we have the data to prove it, let go of half of your sales team, spend half of that money, so you're still saving money, on marketing and double your sales.
Absolutely.
This is the world we're moving into,
That's
right? Self-serve world where
Digital.
people learn on their own and marketing is who helps us.
That's
so we're
right.
going to see this huge pump in marketing. And then we're going to begin to see the pushback on partnering.
Yeah.
So right before you push through any innovation,
you're going to get the resistance.
You get the resistance, right? That's how you know you're there.
Yeah.
Right. A little, like when there's no resistance, you're not there yet. We're going to see, I think it's going to be early.
We're birthing. We're birthing.
Right,
here.
End of 24, beginning of 25, you're going to see some massive pushback on partnering.
Yep.
Right. A little like, no. Right. No. And then it's going to pump through and it's going to be
I can't wait for that
crazy.
day. I can't wait for that day.
It's going to be just crazy. So if you're not partner enabled, get there.
Yeah. I love it, Janet. You were so good to have you here.
Oh,
today.
thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to do this again.
Yes.
So, we're going to get you back here in the studio.
Would love to
come
anytime.
So great to have you. Janet Schijns. If you don't know her, you need to know her. The JS Group, as it was formerly known, incredible organization.
JSGnow.com if you'd like to see our website.
An amazing friend. And so good to have you here.
So great to be
Boca.
here with you. I love what you're doing. Thank you for everything you're doing to champion and save the channel.
Thank you. And a mutual admirer as well. Really appreciate you.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Ultimate Guide to Partnering. Online at ultimateguidetopartnering.com. If you like this episode, I'd be thrilled if you left us up to a 5-star review on either Apple or Spotify. This helps us to continue to feature amazing guests. Also, please check out and subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Ultimate Partner. We'll catch you next time on the Ultimate Guide to Partnering.